Happy day, YouTube. My name is John, and this is my channel, The Intermancer. Last time I added a status object or a component to the system to track the progress of an experiment as it works through the experiment cycles that it's configured to. This time I am going to be working on the front end, one, to do a little bit of cleanup that's overdue, and then to add the status into the experiment screen. So let's go ahead and get into that. The first thing we need to do, as you can see here, when I don't know if my server is running. In fact, I know my server is not running. So what is that? npm run dev, I think. Oh, okay. npm run dev. Okay, and go over here. Let's go ahead and, I think it already refreshed. So this configure experiment is no longer necessary. And in fact, start experiment. Oh, right, I don't have my server running. Gradle W Spring boot. Boot run. Boot run. Okay. So it's getting that going. Okay, looks like it's going now. Retry. Okay. So I have this start experiment screen, and it's got a start experiment button. And so I realized I don't really need this. I don't need configure experiment because the configuration is here. And rather than have a stop experiment here, I can put a button here. And so all of this start experiment screen can just go under this experiment menu option here. Of course, the scored organism repository will still have these two things, but experiment we can simplify. So that's probably all I'm going to do for this video, is just clean up this stuff. So going with our context-driven development approach, let's pull up the user interface markdown. Okay, so experiment, sidebar. Okay, okay, so I don't need to worry about that. When experiment is selected, the start experiment screen presents the current configuration of the experiment. We don't need it to be the start experiment. The experiment screen presents the current configuration of the experiment. Allows the user to change configuration. Start and stop the experiment. Okay. That should be sufficient for that. The presents the current configuration of the experiment, the current status of the server of the running experiment, and the command buttons to start or stop the experiment. If the experiment is not running, I'll take that. It's interesting that it gave me all that. That's some interesting. I wonder what AI is running there. Who was it talking back to an LLM when it suggested that sentence completion? Because that was not standard code, obviously, so it had to think about it, and it thought about it pretty fast. So I'm wondering what kind of tokens I'm burning to do that. So let's go ahead and stop the server, open the AI chat. I have updated user interface MD. Okay. First, look at the sidebar component and see what changes need to be made there. As I've shared before, one of the reasons I haven't gone with Claude Code or something like that is because those burn through a lot of tokens. A lot of those code assists, a lot of those agentic coders burn through a lot of tokens. They can be pretty expensive. And so what I'm doing here is to direct the AI's attention to which parts of the system I know need to be changed, and then we'll change them in order. I know the sidebar needs to change. So first we'll change the sidebar, then we'll change the start experiment screen. Okay. So sidebar, get secondary commands. Let's apply that. And then I think main content is where it does the actual screen. What needs to change in main content? All right. Okay, so main content.tsx, let's apply that. Accept those changes. Experiment status view. Looks like it's not using use effect. Is that the only thing here? Okay. Start the server back up. Reload this. Start experiment, stop experiment. Okay. So this experiment status view, experiment status view dot also needs to show the current configuration. Just and update it when the experiment starts, just like start experiment screen.tsx. Obviously that was already in my context document, so I don't need to do that. So I'm using Claude 4.5 Opus. Start. Okay. I'm not redoing my server because I'm not making any changes there. This is all React level changes. React promises to update everything while it's running, so I will lean into that. still don't see the current configuration. When I click experiment on the sidebar. Oh my gosh, I applied it to the wrong thing. Good thing that's going away. So I applied the previous changes to start experiment screen instead of experiment status view. So that was bad. There we go. No experiment running, start experiment. Okay. We're almost to the point where we will see a running experiment. I've been trying to be better about having shorter videos. So I think let's do a little bit more cleanup since I don't need start experiment or stop experiment screen.tsx. I think I can get rid of those. Start. Those files. Okay. Delete. Delete. All right. Now let's look at the commit. Cleaned up the sidebar so that experiment no longer has subcommands. Added status to the experiment screen. Commit and push. What are these warnings? All right. That's the thing where it has to do that comment by the throw. I think that was here. Okay, I think this whole chat was just me adding the status. It was in the files I just deleted. But here's the comment. And it's really where does the catch? Remember having to do that. Okay, now. Oh, dang. Throw. Okay, maybe it was during the throw. Since that's where the warning is. Commitment anyway and push. There we go. All right. That's good. About 23 minutes. Good video length. We made some progress on the UI, cleaned some things up, and I think we have everything in place so that next time I can actually start an experiment and work on monitoring the progress of it as it executes. Thank you for your time.